think we're live.
Yay!
YouTube and LinkedIn.
All right. Hello.
Hi. I hope our connections hold.
I hope so too. I'm like,
Well, we are super happy. I see 3 people are there. Cool. I'm super excited about this, Cathy.
Me too.
So I'm Dr. Anna Clemens. I'm running the Researchers Writing Academy. With me is Dr. Cathy Mazak, who runs also an academic writing company called Scholar's Voice. And yeah, Cathy and I have known each other for years and years and years. And yeah, we decided the other week, we should go live together and chat a little bit about academic writing, and especially writing in times like these that are stressful and kind of high anxiety. And Cathy had the idea to talk a little bit about creating this intentional writing season.
Yes. So I'm very excited to be here. And yes, I was just thinking, I'm like, we've known each other since pre-pandemic, which is kind of like, that's like lifetime ago.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, I think today we can get into some like trends that we're both seeing, since we work with academics across like lots of different countries and different kinds of institutions and things, and actually fields as well, and talk about like, okay, what is the role of writing right now in this like really high anxiety moment in higher ed.
Yeah, and you can, if you want to comment, I think both on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're watching this live, you can just pop a comment and we can see those. I think.
Okay.
And yeah, we're super happy for you to kind of join in the conversation, ask us questions, contribute, whatever comes to mind. I guess first of all, we should talk about the current situation, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like, Cathy, what are we seeing right now? What's kind of happening from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm physically located in Puerto Rico, but most of my clients are in the US and Canada. That's like where the majority of our clients come from. And because of all of the cuts, especially to NIH, but throughout also Department of Ed, also NSF, like so many funding programs have been cut or frozen. We, especially between, like everybody was kind of like, well, what's going to happen in November when the new president was elected? But then it really kind of started to go sideways in January. Like we're seeing, if you've been following headlines about Columbia University, about Harvard, about different universities that have been threatened and then are being either pushing back or not. We're seeing international students being rounded up. We're seeing, a lot of fear and visas being revoked also. So there's a combination of funding fears and true funding cuts and freezes that are sudden and that happened even in the middle of people's, doing the grant work. Basically people being told, stop work, you're done. And then we are also seeing kind of like the culture around higher ed in the States really under a very like particular kind of stress. And that's very stressful for professors. So I mean, for everybody, but specifically, I know for professors who have grants, who are funding international students with grants, who have international students now, they're worried about their immigration status. And that, even though like Canada is not having that specific situation, there is like overflow of that anxiety and stress into Canada, maybe not about the immigration stuff, but about the funding for sure, because Canadians can be funded under these larger US grants. And on top of that, like really we've been seeing in the US especially a lot of like a general shift in higher ed towards austerity. Since the pandemic, there have been a lot of universities closing. There have been universities that saying like much of it like kind of with the push or the fact that there's just so many fewer students, you know, that people are having trouble getting, they're just not getting the tuition dollars that they used to get because there's just fewer humans of that age. And so all that was happening before, you know, these other policies and stuff went into effect. So yeah, it's a high anxiety time to be anyone, to be an academic. So I don't know if
especially,
in the US especially, I don't know if you're seeing like what you're seeing more internationally or.
Yeah, I think so. The majority of my clients as well in North America. So yeah, I very much see the same. The academics I'm working with, especially those who work in like fields, you know, that are especially affected, like you know, research into disabilities or like anything DI related, right? It's just like there's a real intense anxiety, and especially if that's also connected to maybe personal things, as it often is. If you're like personally affected by it as well, like not just your research or your kids are affected by it. It's just like, it's been a really like, I've never seen anything like this before. And internationally, like in Europe, I think the funding like is not affected in the same way, even though I've heard of cases, there are like NSF projects that kind of collaborate with European grant funding agencies, like governmental agencies as well. So I've had researchers tell me, well, now, you know, this grant I was hoping to apply to, like that money just disappeared. Or how can I even, or even if it didn't disappear, they are like, okay, I can't trust it anymore, right? Like, why would I put any time into this? So it's really shaken things up, like, outside of the US too. And I think, just to stay in the US for a little bit, I think what the big shift like I've seen is that academia used to be perceived as this like stable job. Like people partly went into it because they were like, oh, job security, like this is so I think it has attracted people who, I mean, it's not a rule, but like maybe it's a little bit more, has attracted people a little bit more who actually look for a little bit more of this like outside stability, security. And that is a shock. I think this is why, especially for academics, it's such a tough time because they thought they had this. And then like the rug gets pulled.
100%. Yeah. I go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say like that, even if you look at like the US and Canada tenure system, like the North American tenure system, it has that stability, and I'm putting it in air quotes, built into it, right? Like, okay, and there is a general cultural belief inside of North American academic institutions, once I get tenure, I will be safe. I won't get fired. I'll stay in this job, and I'll stay in this job forever. And there's very few academics, there are definitely like academics who decide like, okay, I'm gonna on purpose like move so I can move up. But I would say that's not like the general majority of people. Like people are like, I got tenure, I'm here. And tenure has been under before, like for several years, really maybe for 5 years, 5 to 8 years, the tenure in the US has been under fire for sure. And they've been talking about in certain states eliminating, like Texas and Florida, like eliminating the tenure system. Like you're not safe with tenure anymore.
I wasn't aware of this.
Okay, yeah, so it hasn't really happened, but like that has been the talk in like state legislatures in some of these more conservative states. And so I think that this like, but even with that, people didn't feel the amount of instability that they feel now. And you're exactly right. I think like generally, like researchers, they need to take their time and really understand, and they need to, like if they were going to be people who were super risk takers, they would go into tech, or they would go into some other field that kind of like rewards huge risk taking. And just academia as a culturally doesn't. So it's
true.
not
Yeah.
surprising to me that we have people who are like, whoa, I thought this was safe and it's not. I
Yeah.
thought these things, like these pots of money, were guaranteed as at least existing. So if I just got better at writing the grant, I could get, if I had better ideas and I would just like work harder, I would get some of these monies. And we're seeing that we can't get, that's exactly the rug pulled out under those ideas.
Yeah, and you do need stability, right? You need time. You can't do research in this way.
Right.
Yeah, so also I think what I see happening in Europe, because I feel like there's been like a worldwide, or at least in the Western world, like a spillover effect of just the news
Yeah.
have affected people, me included, so much this year. Again, to like to me, I've never experienced this before. Like, I mean, the pandemic was also similar, I guess, but also felt a little different because it still felt like, oh, we're all in this together in a way. And that helped a little bit. Whereas now maybe I'm forgetting what happened during the pandemic, or how I felt during it. But this feels very existential and I think very anxiety inducing. And they, like researchers, academics in Europe and in Australia and other countries also feel it, even though they're not directly affected by it, and their universities, and funding runs as usual. It's still for a lot of people really hard or they've really been like pulled out a little bit, I think, this past semester, or like this past half year. And we're not able to be probably as productive as they hoped to be for a while, because there was so much else going on.
Yeah. And I think too, like we should acknowledge it's not only like the political world order, but also a lot of war. Right, like we're like intensified war in multiple regions, and so I know that in my groups as well, even though actually the general sentiment is this like high anxiety around what's going to happen in higher ed, there's also like this like, okay, and also these horrible things are happening all over the world. Like it's an existential crisis. It can be an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Which I think is why we need to talk about writing as an anchor. Right, like and really like where do we find those anchors when it feels like everything is going off the rails?
So do you want to talk a little bit about how you've dealt with the anxiety, perhaps? Do you have any tips, and maybe then we can lead into like the idea of, okay, let's create this like intentional writing season despite everything that's going on, kind of using writing as a tool, even to be able to write and produce.
And to kind of find that I like that you came up with this word of anchor, like, because it's a really steadying kind of a mooring in a moment where everybody feels unmoored, right? So for me, I like not immediately. So I don't want to like make the idea that like I've dealt with anxiety by immediately being centered. No. But after like that disruptive, like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And many moments of like, I can't believe this is happening. Though that happens, that has been happening like so many times that then I've developed like a way to deal. And my way to deal is a return to mission and a return to values. And so for me, be it taking actual intentional time to think about, wait, what is my role? Like, what is my professional role? You know, for me, my professional role is as a writing and career coach. And so I can't be like all off the rails and flailing, because I need to help other people who are feeling that way to recenter as well. So for me, it's a return to a few things. My mission, like, what is my work about? Why is that important to me? Why is it still important to me now, or even more important than ever within this current kind of context? And then staying true to my values. Like, I have a written value statement. I have, you know, I think about it, and I think, like, is the way, where am I living out these values? How can I more genuinely live out those values in the world? And that kind of anchoring is really helpful when you're getting bombarded with a lot. Also, I would like to say that I have I'm not on social media. So that's something as well. Like, I really try to not be on social media, but it doesn't mean I don't watch news. And that's something that that I'm constantly struggling with, is like, do I check the news? Like, do I want to know what's going on? Won't I hear about it, like, from my husband or somebody else, like, if something major happened? So, like, a little bit of filtering input. So those are some ways that I've dealt, you know, with anxiety around this situation. It's just like that return to, like, well, what am I really about, and what am I here for? And also, like, one other little extra layer of, yes, things are uncertain, but certainty, perhaps, you know, a year ago was an illusion. You know what I mean? Like, things are always uncertain.
I think certainty is always an illusion.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, we are not in control. We are
Yeah.
never in control. Like,
Yes,
anything can happen at any time. And if you've never, I mean, yeah, I guess this is a very, very good or strong reminder, all these times, of this concept that, yeah, I guess it's just like good self-care, good mental health practice to just be aware of this and to practice this. And to me, a few like other kind of helpful realizations or sentences have really helped me. I mean, one is that, I mean, definitely this one, like, things are never certain, and also this striving for certainty or for security, just like investigating a little bit, where does this come from? Why do we need this? Is this ever really the case? And also that, to me, uncertainty doesn't mean that things will become worse forever. Worse and worse forever, I guess. Like, for me, it was like, okay, it also can mean that things get better. Like, it just means we don't know.
We don't know.
And the other one for me was, okay, the worst that can happen is for us to lose hope, and to lose kind of ourselves, because then everything is lost.
Right.
But yeah, really trying, and of course allowing yourself to grieve, to be anxious, to be sad, to process, of course, but in the end, to be aware of that, you being there and you navigating the world and you still doing good in the world and you are like putting your footprint on the world is just what we need. Yeah. So, and then I totally agree with you with the like social media and news. I think for me, this has also be the biggest things. I mean, it's so, everyone, like, you hear it all the time, but the effect is just so profound of just like kind of keeping yourself a little bit out of that, or like filtering this a little bit better. And sometimes I am on social media, but I just kind of log in a few times a week or something like that instead of scrolling.
Right. Yeah.
All the time. And with news as well, I go through phases where I don't listen to any news for weeks. And then I do miss things for a bit. And I don't think this is like sustainable in the long run, but it is definitely something that you can practice for like a couple of weeks. And the big things, someone will tell you. Like, that's the good thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, seasons. So, and writing as an anchor.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about seasons,
Yeah,
perhaps?
I do. One thing before I talk about seasons that might give people a little bit of perspective related to what we were just talking about is like, if you are in academia right now, you did it through the pandemic. So you are very equipped to deal with uncertainty. So this is just more uncertainty and it sucks, but you have done it before. You might have, many people pivoted their research completely because they couldn't do the in-person things that they used to do and that kind of stuff. So that is just a little bit like a reminder that all of you in academia right now, we're also in academia, at least if you're like a professor or a grad student, you were in academia before, during the pandemic, and you made it through. So, okay, so seasons. So the idea of seasonality that the reason I love it so much is that academia, unlike maybe other types of fields, right, or jobs or industries, I guess, is always seasonal. So like we always have this, like, sometimes we call in North America, right, we call it often the fall and the spring term and the summer. So like a general, like most semester systems would be like a 15 or a 16 week session, and then a break, and then a 15 or 16 week session, and then a break, and then a optional summer, and then you start again, right? So there's always like seasonality in the year that is kind of built into the academic experience, including things like sports teams, like, which again, like in North America is like a really big part of academia, is this whatever sport you're watching, you know, at the moment, and that is very seasonal. So, but also like we are humans and we are also seasonal. Like we are not all the time, every day, 24/7, 365 the same. Like we are, and I think that academia has, especially like right now, has borrowed this idea of, I don't know, this like super factory seeming idea of like, you just should ignore your humanity. Like, don't get sick, don't cancel class, don't, produce regardless of what's happening in your life, So the idea of embracing seasons is also like a little rejection of that. It's just not true. Like you're just not going to be the same amount of productive, like all the time. Stuff happens, right? So I like to talk to people about also intentionally creating seasons in their career. So when you were not worried about grant programs being cut, like you probably were thinking like, I need to pump out a lot of grant applications to fund the next thing I'm going to do, right? So you might have a season of your focus in your work is grant writing. But then you might get a big grant. And then you can kind of, at least at the beginning, depending on your field and lots of things, take a little bit of the pressure off of the grant getting and turn it into the grantsmanship part, right? Like where you're actually implementing and doing and collecting data. And then another season of analysis. And then maybe another season of like productive writing off of that grant. Now, all of these things overlap. They all are happening at somewhat the same time. But my point is that you can't do grant getting, implementing the grants, analyzing and pumping out papers as one human all the time at that like 100% level. And instead, you will be more successful. Instead of trying for that, you'll be more successful by saying like, okay, well, this semester and maybe this whole 9 months, I'm going to be really like focusing on grant getting. And then I will be focused on analysis and write up. Or like a lot of the times what happens to people is that they'll have kind of snowballed a bunch of grants and they have a backlog of papers, and being able to like design a writing and like an intentional writing season like we're talking about here, where like really the focus is not on grant getting. You might still be writing grants, but the focus isn't there. The focus is on, okay, I got a lot of backed up papers here. Let me, get things into submission. And that's a choice that you can make and something that you can kind of design. And similarly too, like you don't like sometimes the season is like teaching, like in some, you know, sometimes it's curriculum change, some, you know, like that that's also like available to you, and depending on what kind of job you have, right? And so thinking about like, well, what season am I in right now, what season do I want to be in, and like taking action to create that for yourself is a really powerful agentive idea, and I think agency helps you get out of anxiety.
I really like that. It kind of takes the pressure off of having to do everything all at once,
Yes.
which kind of, if you're a professor, this is what your work may look like. I have to do all these things at once, and it feels overwhelming. And having to do this in a high anxiety time is just, next to impossible. And yeah, agency, making decisions. I think actually taking a step back and reflecting on, hey, okay. Let's take a breather. And those of you who are watching this, you're doing this right now, right?
Yeah.
Like you stepped out, you're like, okay, let's have a look. Like, what am I actually doing right now? Is this, or how do I want to spend the next few months? What kind of season could you design, could you create for yourself? What makes sense right now? And with grants being cut or grants being uncertain, and it may not feel too good to write a grant right now, depending on where you are and what your field is. I think it's a perfect time for many to actually focus on publications. And as you say, those backlogs, right? So many people have like unfinished papers in their drawer who they've wanted to finish, and just there's never the time. So maybe this is your time, like maybe now the next few months is where you can tackle some of those. And yeah, I don't know, writing as anchor, I think this sounds good. And I also think a lot of academics listening are like, yeah, I wish. Like,
Sure.
writing just feels so horrible to me, or like writing is just like also an anxiety-inducing thing.
Sure.
So like doing this in an anxiety-inducing time is like even harder than doing it when I'm feeling like emotionally good. So how do I kind of get the two together?
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, my big goal with my program, the Researchers Writing Academy, like my big goal with that is I want to show people that writing can be fun. And I want them to enjoy writing and love it, because I personally love writing and it gives me so much. And I'm really a little bit sad about generative AI for that reason.
Agree.
Because it takes away from the joy. And it is tempting. It's a little bit like social media, like, oh, like a little dopamine hit or a little less like cognitive effort, like click and you can get it. But I don't want to get into the whole discussion of that. That's another topic. But I guess what we want to talk about is like, okay, how can you make writing feel good? Like, how can it be this anchor? Shall I tell the story of how it was an anchor for me during my PhD?
Do it. Yes, I want
it. Okay, so this has been like my really like foundational experience with writing, because I had a very stressful PhD, at least in the first few years. It was really, really horrible. I had like horrible mentor. And there was just so much, like, I can't even, like, it's hard to refeel these emotions. I just know like every day just felt like a slog. And it was a very like emotionally heightened phase, a lot of anxiety, a lot of like a lot of like negative emotions in general. And then, but I got to a point where I got to write like a licentiate thesis and a few papers. So the licentiate thesis was like something like a mini PhD thesis that in Sweden, where I did my PhD, was like thing to do. And it was so, I don't know, it just left such an imprint on me, because I suddenly got to sit there and write. And I loved it so much because I got pulled in it. I was immersed for hours, like the time just went. I didn't even realize how many hours I'd sat down and written, and I felt accomplished by the end of it. And I had something produced that was there and that nobody could take away. I mean, some of the, and I also, I guess, I was lucky in the sense that my writing was at a relatively good level, so that also like the feedback I would get wasn't like devastating.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
like that was taken away from me. It was like improved upon, okay, and then was done. So it was a really like, okay, tick, great, I've done this. Okay, on to the next chapter or on to the next section or paragraph. So it really like stabilized emotional my emotions, and like it helped me and I loved it, and it was an immersive kind of deep work experience that felt really, really fulfilling.
yeah, yeah. I'll go ahead and tell my story, and then people will see why we both are writing coaches. Um, so my PhD experience was beautiful and wonderful. Like I
Mm,
feel like I'm so sorry for people who don't have a wonderful experience. I really did. Like I had a wonderful committee, a fantastic advisor. Um, I have always been a writer. Like maybe my main identity is writer, except maybe teacher. But
mm,
when I was in sixth grade and they asked me what I wanted to be, I said I wanted to be a writer. I was an
mm,
English major. I graduated my English major. I'm like, how can I make money writing? I was a tech writer for like a
mm,
software company. And then I got into teaching, and I did my master's in ESL teaching, like a master's in TESOL, but I focused on writing, on teaching writing. So I was always like, I was a first year comp teacher, I was a writing teacher, a second language writing teacher always. I got hired for my first teaching job because of my writing teaching specialty. And then I did the PhD, and it was like, oh my gosh, I get a chance to just like think about these things and read stuff and write. Like this is amazing. Like to me, it was
mm.
the best. And because I also am not a creative, like I'm not a fiction writer. Like I've always been like
Mm.
a nonfiction.
Same.
Yeah. I would love to be a fiction writer, but it's just still not happening. Um, so my focus has always been like writing myself as a writer, second language writing, and I love to write. I loved writing up my PhD. I did a qualitative study. It was so much storytelling. It was like looking at the data. What is the story the data is telling that
Mm,
story in writing. I loved it. And I also had like really constructive feedback. I had a Spencer dissertation fellowship. So I also got like a lot of support and training around the writing. And it was a great experience. And so something that in my program, one of the things I talk about, right, is that creating, like engineering that positive relationship with your writing. So if it
mm,
hasn't been that experience for you, what can you do so that it's not a slog? What can you do so that you can reduce writing anxiety, and you can sit down and have a really flow state kind of writing session? But it doesn't, like, so I think a lot of people think that happens just because you have some kind of innate ability, and actually like that can be engineered. And so that's a
mm.
lot of what we talk, but
Mm.
that
That's a
cannot,
big
yeah,
takeaway, though. I just want to
yeah,
repeat this,
yeah, go
like
ahead, do
with the
it.
innate ability, because I think both you and me, we maybe had to some
Sure.
capacity, this
Hmm.
innate ability. Maybe we've read a lot, maybe,
Yeah,
we've been interested in writing in school. I've also done like German, which is my first language. I was really into like, I did it German as like, in high school. I don't know.
hmm,
How do you translate it? So I've always written a lot, and I guess we've just picked up a
yeah,
lot about like what good writing is. We both kind of felt more like writers than I think a lot of academics do.
hmm,
Um, but what you said is you can engineer this, like you can
yeah,
engineer like a positive relationship with writing. It doesn't have to be innate. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to feel super talented as a writer. I mean, honestly, I also think what a lot of people think writing is and what good writing is probably not
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
like all these things, like especially in academia, like we are not writing fiction. There's a lot of things we just even don't need. Like it's all a lot simpler, I think,
Yeah. And
to be a good
yes.
academic writer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of us are on a mission of like let's make this writing clearer and better and easier to
Yeah.
read, instead of like, I think a lot of people, they've read so much bad academic writing that they kind of
Mm,
take that as the genre, like that's the genre. It has to be
mm,
obtuse. It has to have a
mm.
lot of technical words. It has to be like this, when actually, as we know and as you teach, it's story. In the end, it's a story. Like, and so you have to,
Yeah.
like, and it's the story you tell, even just with your figures, right? So so anyway, I think but I do think it can be engineered, and some of that a good relationship writing, in fact, with writing, in fact, always is engineered. We had all these you and I had positive writing experiences, and so if you haven't had the privilege of having those writing experiences that are positive, then you have to make them.
Mm,
And you do that by there's a lot of techniques that I talk about in my program, but like one of them might be like, well, timing your writing sessions, like placing your writing sessions at a time of day that is an energetic time of day for you. um,
mm,
and or like if you're having trouble maintaining your butt in the chair, or like maintaining energy through a writing session, having a writing partner and getting on Zoom and doing it at the same
mm.
time, like that body doubling co-writing thing. There's many other things, but it's like it's intentional.
Mm.
So that idea of like it's natural. I don't think it's natural. I think it's intentional.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think I always see it as like two parts, or like two parts that kind of need to fit together. Like one is like what you were saying, like the whole, like your whole writing practice, I guess is the word, right? Like the whole practice can be engineered in a way that you have you create like a positive
Yeah,
feeling
feedback.
each
Yeah.
time, and you kind of,
Mhm.
because you have the positive feeling, you're like, oh great, I'll look forward to writing, I'll do it again, and then you sit down
Yes,
again. I always compare it to like going to the gym. To me it's
100%.
exactly the same, or going
Yep.
going
Yep.
running or something like this. You only do it again if it felt good. Like you can only force yourself so many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
It's not, if you can get away from the motivation being discipline or self-discipline.
mm,
I think that's actually like a mistake that a lot of writing teachers make, and a lot of writing
mm,
advice is like, you have
mm,
to have self-discipline. um, how about instead like mission driven reasons? How about like other, instead of like that, so like punitive, like can you
mm,
make their feedback loops much more positive, and coming from, you're looking for motivation that's not external, looking for motivation that comes from that, like I have, like the reason that voice is in the name of my company name is like
mm,
looking for your voice, like and really
mm,
um understanding the importance of what you have to say in the conversation. And so
mm.
getting to that mindset is even more important than anything else. Like believing that you have something to say is like step one. Like
Yeah,
something valuable
yeah,
to say.
yeah.
I do
And
you
it
want to?
connects back to
Yeah.
the value and mission that you mentioned
Yes,
earlier, that
exactly.
actually helps you
Exactly.
in high anxiety
Yeah,
times.
absolutely. I'm seeing comments. Do you want to? Can I read this comment from
Yeah,
Farina?
please.
Okay, she says, while you're talking about how reading has helped you a lot to improve your writing skills, do you have tips on how to make the learnings stick? And she says, I am troubled with mom brain. So this I want to talk to you specifically because I have 3 children and I have been troubled with mom brain many moments in my life. And I want to bring it back to this idea of seasons. So when you might have your writing like popping, right? Like you're like, everything's going, everything's great. And then something happens to you physically. For example, have a child, or child has something, is in a sleep stage that's like this, or like child's going to a new school, so they're disrupted in some way. And all of that affects you and your energy and your ability to maintain attention, and lots, like even just your especially your energy levels. And so I've always found it particularly cruel that while you are, like, most of the time for many people, when they are in early career is also when they have small children, right? So at the very moment where you're trying to like produce a lot so you can get that first promotion, you are being woken up at night and kids get sick and you have to stay home with them and all of that mess. But I really want you to take this idea of seasons to that question as well, to this idea. It's like, well, but this is, if your children are small, this is a season, and when you are in it, it doesn't feel like it will ever end, but I guarantee you that they will not be small at some point, and they will begin to ignore you. And it will take, maybe it takes many, many years. If you have a kid with special needs, maybe they'll never ignore you, and you really have to, but this is all part of it. You can't expect to block out the parenting so that you can get your work done. Like, you have to figure out how to do the work and be a parent, like, and be a mom. Like that is, it doesn't always have to be the same. Like, I definitely have more access to focus time because my youngest one is now 9, so she can like kind of entertain herself. So all of this to say that my actual answer to your question, Farina, of like, how do you make learning about writing stick? My answer is reps. And so to go back to the gym metaphor that we were talking about before, I think that many times academic writers think, I need to write the perfect article. And then, because my hope is that I will submit it and I will get no feedback, and they'll say, yes, we'll publish it, and I'm done. But that shouldn't be your goal. It is a completely unrealistic goal. So like, just take it off the table. Your goal should be reps. Like, repeat the process, do repetitions of submission, get feedback, submit again. Repetition, get feedback, submit again. That's how you make things stick. So it's doing it over and over again. And the same as like, when you have a positive writing session, like a positive experience with writing, what happened? How can I engineer that? More reps. The more you repeat having a positive writing session, and that might mean that when you're having a really sloggy time and you feel like, I hate this, I keep writing 5 words and deleting 3 and writing 7 words and deleting 5, like, stop and get up and do something else. Take a walk, come back. So that idea of like, to get things to stick, answer is reps. It's the same as like when you're lifting weights, it's the 13th rep that makes you, that really does that change to your body, and so 2 things, right? Acknowledge the season that you're in, and that maybe you're not gonna, like, your mom brain can't handle, you have to adjust expectations. And also, the way to make things stick is reps. So the goal should be submitting and getting feedback, and submitting and getting feedback. The goal should be more positive, not necessarily more during the week. Like, I'm not saying like 5 days a week or 7 days a week you write, but like every time you do have a writing session, it's a positive experience.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think in terms of like, for me, reading, I mean, I said earlier, like, we've probably read a lot and like kind of absorbed a lot about what good writing is through that. For me, that process really hasn't been a conscious one. So I think it just happens automatically that as you read good writing, writing you aspire to. I mean, I think reading the academic literature, it's not always true, because just so much of the academic literature isn't actually written
Yep.
that well. So,
Yeah.
but reading stuff that either you think is like good writing, or like just in general, it doesn't have to be academic. It can be other nonfiction writing, especially. Like newspapers,
Yeah.
Substacks, I don't know,
Yeah.
essays. I think that does help, because I think the brain just picks up automatically on certain
Yeah.
like phrases, certain sentence constructions, things like that, without that you necessarily have to analyze them. But at the same time, one could do that too, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend making like reading and learning from reading like an exercise in itself, because like not for academic writers at this point. Like it's better, as Cathy, you said, practice through the writing, like actually write,
Yeah. Yeah.
produce, get feedback, and put your time and effort into that, instead of learning through reading, which actually is like a common myth. I think this is like a common thing. Like I've been advised this, that I would get better at writing by reading more papers,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah. Well, I think you would get better at writing if you read more good papers. But when you're reading papers, you're not choosing them based on how
Yeah,
great they were written. You're choosing them based on like what results what you're researching, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I do think that I mean, one of the best exercises I ever did, and I just thank my professor Ann Haas Dyson for making me do this in my PhD, was that she brought in, she's like, here are a bunch of good theses, good
Mm.
dissertations. I'm picking this one for you because it's closest to like what you're doing. And we had to read it and analyze it and reverse outline it.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's good.
I only had to do that once. Like I didn't have to do
Yeah.
that for like multiple other people's dissertations. And I was like, got it. And I was like, I got the genre. And I had this experience of reading something that was written really beautifully that I wanted to emulate. So another thing to think
Mm.
about is just like when you're reading stuff in the process of researching and you really love a paper, like in terms of like how it's written, or you read, it felt easy to
Mm.
read and it felt like
Mm.
impactful. Like just take a second and think like why. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And if you
Yeah.
want to, you could, I mean, if you really wanted to, if you're in a season of trying to improve your writing, like maybe you want to reverse outline that or do something, that I think emulating things that you like, but not emulating like 'cause other people told you it was good. Like reading and saying like, wow, this one was really great. I want to write more like this. And then just having a few thoughts about like, why was it good? Like, why,
Mm.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be
Mm.
like a major time suck. It's just in the process of doing
Mm.
other things.
Mm. Yeah, that's really great advice. I think if someone can either give you good writing,
Yep.
as your advisor did,
Yeah.
or yeah, like paying attention to, also maybe the reverse, paying attention to when you got distracted as you were reading, or if
Mm.
you got
What
confused,
makes
like
things
that's,
bad?
yeah, like why can't I keep with this paper? Like we always think, oh, it's awful. Like, oh my God,
Right.
like
Mm.
I cannot focus on this. My attention span is just like not existent, or I'm too dumb. I don't understand it.
Yep.
Like I'm not smart enough for this writer. But like if you try to ignore these thoughts and just
Yeah.
think, what about the writing made it? So I couldn't stick with it. Also,
Yeah.
I could stick with it.
Yeah.
All
Great.
right. Farina says thank you. um, my season is currently a baby rolling around on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's like a lot of like adjust your expectations, like especially around motherhood. Like I was so thankful to get a really great long maternity leave so that so that I could really be off, like, and I didn't have to try to produce during my maternity leave or anything like that. And yeah, because your brain is just not for that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I was talking earlier like about kind of um okay, two parts that make you kind of develop like a positive relationship with writing, that make you wanna come back to writing because writing just feels so good. And we mentioned one is like this like writing practice, like just a positive writing practice. I think, and this is what Cathy teaches so well in her Navigate program. And I think then to me, what like additionally ideally is also there that you know a system for how you write an article, so that you know that whole process is something you can just like hit rinse and repeat. Like you just know how it's done. You have like the confidence that you know, okay, every step of like writing this thing, turning like data into like a story, into like a paper, you know exactly what to do, and you don't have to like I don't know, have like all the self-doubt, or is this actually good, or is this the right thing to do now, or like perfectionism, you know, you're like kind of trying to get each sentence perfect, but you just know, okay, I do this, I do this, I do this, and then at the end it's done. I think that's like the two parts that I see that are like so important, and this is when writing really like clicks. And I've seen it happen, like, and Cathy, you've seen it happen too, to people even who really hated writing, or who thought they aren't writers, who never saw themselves as writers, who had a lot of like negative emotions about writing. And we've seen people like really transform and really love writing and really show up. Yeah, it makes me happy. It's so fun.
Yes. And I would say, like, just, you know, if you're watching this and you don't know what Anna does, like Anna really teaches that system. And so like she that's what her work is really about. And you're just taking out a level of decision making, right? Like there's a lot of writing is about decision making, right? But so if you can take out some of it, like, and really make decisions about your scholarly work, like make the scholarly decisions, that's where you want to be putting your decision making energy. So if you have a system, then you are taking that like extra layer of decision making out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say like writing, like it really isn't that hard. Like once you know how it's done, it's like, and once you have the practice down, it's not that hard. Like it's just a thing. I think like it's just a thing you need to invest in once, learn it, build the practice. Yes, this may take a year, you know, like until it's all, you know, a routine and you're there. But then, you know, you have it and you just keep this for the rest of your career.
The one other little piece, and that we also deal with in the Navigate program, is time. Like a lot of people are like, well, but I don't have the time. And so that is something, again, you don't have the time, actually. So so you have to figure out how you're going to make the time, and you can't make additional hours. So that means you have to get real centered in your mission and figure out what stays and what goes among the many activities and things that you do in your career. So that's another thing that we deal with in my program, is like, how do you create you know, a schedule that writing is integrated into? Like, how do you have good project management so that you don't have to write every day, but that you can come back to things because you know where they are, you know? So yeah, but it's but it is something I do think, like, to set people's expectations. Like if you're ready to join a program or something, like set your expectation that it's going to take a year, like whether the program's a year long or not. Like you're trying to change practices and develop habits. Like it's not, it's the same as exercise, right? Like we're not, we don't do a 4-week exercise program or even a 12-week exercise program and then are fixed for life. Like I wish, right? But no,
right.
you know, you really have to like continue to refine and continue to put energy into developing your practice. And I mean, throughout your career, but maybe more intensely in that first year.
And if you want to make, or if people want to make the next few months, or however long they wanted to make their intentional writing season, what can we like kind of recommend? Just, I guess we touched upon a lot of things, but just maybe to recap or summarize, or just to, you know, put it all in one place. Like what's kind of, what's step number one, perhaps?
Yeah. So I would say just declaring it for yourself, a writing season, and saying like, okay, my priority in the next, and you can decide in the next semester, the next academic year, my priority is going to be writing and submitting papers. And so you should probably write that down somewhere, because when you are faced with decision making, when you're faced with an opportunity for something, you need to stop and say, okay, wait, I'm being asked to join this new project, but I'm in a writing season. And so that's going to take away from my writing season, or it's going to support it. Like maybe it will, but that needs to be like, you need to be making really intentional decisions in order for you to enact it. So I would say declare it, put it on a sticky note on your computer, so that when you get asked to do other things that might pull you out of that writing season, you can remember, oh, no, I'm in a writing season intentionally.
Yeah, I love that. And perhaps even tie it back to your mission and to your values.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As we mentioned before. And then is there anything else we should say? I think we kind of said it a lot in the past hour, but I think one of the things is, if you're in a writing season, you do have to say no to other things.
Absolutely.
I mean, just to, say it explicitly, like you can't do all the things at once. So be like, okay, like you want to focus on writing. So you will have to say no to things. You may need to cancel some things.
Yes.
You may need to, change like just know what the priority is, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it does mean not all the things can be a priority. Like you can only have one priority.
Exactly. And this is not, it's a season. Like, and so when people come at you and they're like, we want you to be on this committee because blah, 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 try out something like, I mean, you don't have to tell them this, but like in your mind, your decision making should be, yeah, but I'm in a writing season. I'll think about that for, spring of 2027. And that's something you could tell people, like, you know what, this is something I want to do. Maybe it's not something you want to do, but like, this is something I want to do. Please, circle back with me in a year. Because right now I have all these projects and I can't fit that in, or whatever. You don't ever have to tell people excuses, but I'm saying for yourself, like, as you say no to things, it's this season. Like there's a future time when those opportunities are still possible and you can say yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good ways to say no as well. We can talk about this some other time, but or you can join the Researchers Writing Academy. We talk about this a lot. And I think the other thing that I just wanted to recap is, you may need some training. Like, don't shy away. Like, if you want this to be a writing season, don't shy away from, if you're not immediately there yet. Maybe you're there yet. Maybe you're like, okay, I just needed this impulse to be intentional, and I'm fine to run, and that's amazing. And please tell us how it's going. And if you're not there yet, and if you feel like, oh, I don't think I can, I don't know if I know how. Oh, did I drop out?
I think you did for a second. So now you're back.
I think, just know that, like, investing a bit of time, investing a bit of money into training will pay off so much. Like, just, do it once. And then you can learn it. And the other thing is, I think the good thing about like kind of joining a program is that you get to meet others. So we haven't talked about community at all, but I actually think this is such a big thing in high anxiety times too, that being immersed in a community, being able to talk to others, just knowing everyone's kind of in the same boat, they are all also working towards that goal. Seeing other people have successes is so motivating. And really changes, like, kind of shapes your whole identity as a writer. Like, if you don't see yourself as a writer, this really helps as well, being in a community of writers and having like invested into something like writing that kind of,
Yeah.
tells your brain, well, maybe I think I'm a writer because
Yeah.
um,
Or even like that investment of time and and money, like that pulls writing up to a higher priority for
mm.
the in the
Oh,
way
so
that you
true,
think
so
about it.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that, I mean, look, I'll like something like the writing retreat that you're doing soon, like in the literature about academic writing retreats, that is
Mm,
one of the things that is the reason that they're successful, is that
mm,
you go from thinking writing is peripheral to a focused amount of time when writing is the thing,
mm,
and on a retreat, right? And that shift in like priority of writing can then pull through the rest of the academic year. So that
mm,
kind of investment, um, it just elevates the place of writing in your career to invest professional development
mm,
money and time in it,
mm.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, so true. Yeah, so I think what Kathy and I were thinking, as a way to kick off like an intentional writing season, is something that we think works really well is to have 3 days where you're like
Yes.
focused. Um, and incidentally, like we didn't plan for this, but we
Right.
both have resources for this.
Yes.
So as Kathy mentioned, I'm facilitating a writing retreat next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, where you can like dedicate 3 full days to writing. Like really, like, with everything that's going on, whether like, I know some are like, if you have kids, you have so much going on, it's really hard to
Yeah.
focus. And it's, I don't know, it's the like, a lot of like kind of self-deprecation happens during that time, I think, because we go in with the expectation that we will be able to write so much, and then the reality is, well, we still have to look after children or,
Yeah.
ferry them from summer camp to summer camp.
Yes.
Um, so having the space to have like someone else, keep the time to tell you when to write, when to break, all the things, like this is what we're doing next week. We have loads of like fun things happening, like yoga and like other things, so it's going to be really fun. So if you are interested to join that, actually I have like a Google Doc, I'll post this as a comment
Oh, great.
down here where you can see, the schedule and all the things. We'd love to have you. The only thing is that actually doors close tomorrow, and that's the 10th of July, 2025. So you do have to decide quickly, but you can still join. So if you want to, really carve out 3 days, you really deserve it, I think. You deserve to get
Yes.
your writing project finished. I think 3 days is a realistic time frame to actually get a project finished, and that's where Kathy's
Yeah.
freebie ties in so well.
Yes, if you would drop it in the chat. I haven't connected my YouTube account, so I'm afraid to like try to do that while we're on the
I'll
call.
do
But
it. I'll do
thank
it.
you, I appreciate it. So I actually run 3 times a year. I run like a 3-day workshop that's called "Submit Your Almost Done Article in 3 Days," and I turned that. It's like a little paid workshop, but I turned the content from that workshop into a free guide. So it's a PDF guide that you can download at the link. I'll read the link. It's not a very accessible link for reading, but but Anna's also going to drop it in the chat. It's scholarsvoice.org/submit dash in dash 3 dash days dash PDF guide. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I should have made it a cuter URL, but here we are. So if you can't like access that link, or you're just listening and this is a podcast, then you can always email us at support@scholarsvoice.org, and we'll hook you up with with the link for that freebie guide.
Oh, that's so amazing, and it's completely free. So,
Totally free.
yeah, you have nothing to lose
Yes.
by getting that guide. And if you're joining the writing retreat, then you could use the guide, during that time. Like they're just so complementary, these two
Yes.
resources.
So good.
Amazing.
Yay!
Well,
Thank
we've
you so much.
gone over the hour. Thank you. This has been fun. Thanks for watching, everyone. And yeah, if you have any questions for Cathy or me or our programs or anything, find us. You can find me at annaclemens.com. Cathy is at scholarsvoice.org.
Yeah. And also, like, I have a podcast. It's called Academic Writing Amplified. So if you wanted an even lower barrier to entry way to think about your writing during this season, you could just queue up a bunch of podcasts. There's almost 300 episodes now in the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. So amazing.
It's a really amazing podcast, and actually a lot of members of the Researchers Writing Academy listen to it.
Yay!
Oh, Noelle says thank you. This was really helpful.
Thank you,
She's
Noelle.
also in the academy.
Great.
Amazing.
Yay.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Cathy. Thanks, everyone. It's been fun chatting, and hope to hear from everyone soon. Bye.
Bye.